Hello guys, AJ here, and I am back with some more college confessions. Let's stop talking about students for a little while. Let's talk about classes. Um, so, the way I see it, it boils down to, for professors, even in high school, honestly, even teachers in high school, there's three different kinds. There's the ones that are awesome, and are good at teaching, love their job. Okay? They're not necessarily nice. You know, they don't have. It's not a teacher's job to be nice. It helps if they're nice. But these are professors and teachers who do a good job, who truly understand their craft, and who aren't mean. There's a difference between being nice and mean, or not nice and mean. You know, you don't have to be a particularly nice professor. Honestly, the ones that are tough but fair work the best, in my opinion. But that's category one. Category two is your professors who love their job, might love teaching, but aren't very good at it. They're not horrible. You're not going to wind up with, an F or anything. But you're going to have to do a little bit more work because these professors don't quite know what they're doing. A lot of these are older professors who have been teaching the same way for years, and maybe it's not as relevant now, or maybe no one's pointed out some flaws, or, maybe they're just too nice for any student to actually be like, hey, we're not learning anything in your class. Okay, you're going to come up against a lot of those professors. Those are going to be your majority of professors because those are the professors that are there and have been there because of tenure. This isn't University X's problem. This is a problem across all education systems, even in high school. Universities, high school, everything. You can't really get rid of them, to be honest. It's a nice job once you have the tenure, my bad, tenure. I meant to say tenure. And then you have your third class, which is a professor that truly does not care. This professor is probably going to be mean to you. This professor is probably going to be unfair. Probably not going to teach you what you want to know. Might teach you what you want to know, but be incredibly unfair. So yeah, there's your highs, your mediums, and your lows of professors. Let's start with my computing class. This guy, my professor fell about into the middle class, the middle category of, he liked his job, but he's not doing a good job of teaching at all. Although he kind of dips into the third class too of not being particularly fair. Alright, so let me say this, that the computing class, Intro to Computing is what it was called on the paper. And it is basically a computer class that every freshman at the university must take. No matter your major, no matter what school inside the college, doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You have to take this class. Freshman year, either first or second semester, although most of us took it first, I believe. You had to take this class. Right? And in theory, it sounds like a good class. It's Microsoft Excel, it's, what else? Security awareness, like, how to not get hacked. It's Alice for some reason, which is this program, this basic animation program, like this really basic animation program, which interested me, but I couldn't see how that was particularly relevant to the rest of the class. And it was also of how to design websites, very basic websites. These are things, aside from Alice, I guess, but these are things that's worthwhile to know for the job market, for, just living. Knowing how to use Excel perfectly. I'm not just talking about, kind of having a basic grasp. I mean, you're supposed to learn how to use all of the little features that it has. I just kind of use it for tables, to be completely honest. I just use it for lists of things, which is totally not what it's meant for. And learning how to make a website, I mean, hey, that is a basic skill that anyone in the year 2013, any graduate of college should know how to do. Because regardless of your business, I mean, that's something I would say about maybe 25% of graduates will use either in their major, either becoming a media design, designing websites, or possibly, having a business where a website needs to be designed, and instead of having to contract someone, you can just do it. It's very useful, incredibly useful. All right, so not a bad idea. However, the flaw with classes that everyone has to take is that there has to be a lot of classes. There has to be a lot of different professors that have to do these classes. And there's a few problems with this. Problem number one, a lot of these professors hate doing this because it's not it's not their main thing they do at the college. This is just kind of some side gig that they're kind of forced to do. There's another problem in that there's a wide variety of ways that the professors are going to teach because there's so many different professors. I had a friend or two that had like she only had to do about like half of the stuff that I ended up having to do. Why? Different professors, and the way it worked for my class, because there was 4 different subjects. There was the web design, there was the designing of websites, there was Microsoft Excel, there was security awareness, and then there was Alice. Now what he decided to do was he taught, Excel, then website design, and then Alice. And security awareness was something that you read in the book on your own time. So here's how the homework would break down. Basically, you would always have to read a chapter in this book, the security awareness book. Always read a chapter, that's one thing. You always had to do a survey. It was like an open book test. At least I think it was open book. They never explicitly said if it was or wasn't. So I used an open book. So there was read a chapter, take out, do a 10-question multiple choice test. Then there was, okay, I guess I should back up. So my school uses, my old school, University X, used an online thing, an online website for things like homework and stuff. In my high school, it was called First Class, but at University X, it was something different. I'm sure there's a lot of these different websites. It's just kind of a place. It's like a portal where you go online. And some professors will post homework and useful notes. If professors are using it correctly, that's where the homeworks will be, that's where your grades will be, but only about a third of the professors ever ended up using it. This professor used it. Unfortunately, he did not use it well. Because whenever you would look, he had a folder for every week, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, whatever. You click on it, it's got, a tab that says classwork, a tab that says homework, a tab that says, was it like extra notes or whatever, practice, something. And, so each week it was read a chapter in the book, fill out a survey for that, or, take a test for that. You had to do 3 responses, write 3 responses to whatever topic he decided to post related to computers and the internet. Which was a pain because he also didn't want you to have it, he didn't want them to be 3 posts at the same time. You had to post on different days in order to get full credit. Why? I don't know. Doesn't make a sense to me. I always posted on like Thursday night before the class. I got points off, but I did it anyway. Because that's kind of BS. There's nothing timed about it, to be honest. It was just either, you pretty much posted 1 full reply to yourself, you posted 1 full topic yourself, and then you pretty much replied to 2 others. And they had to be like, well thought out things, or else he wouldn't give you full credit. I'm starting to paint a picture of what this professor was like, aren't I? Okay, so that's 3 things you had to do right off the bat. Then, there would always be at least 2 assignments. 1 in like the homework, 1 in the classwork, or 2 in the classwork, whatever. There would always be about 2 assignments, and you couldn't tell which one he wanted you to hand in. Yeah, one says homework and one says classwork, but it's not always the homework that he wants you to hand in, right? So some of them, about half the stuff on the portal there, was just for practice, but it's not labeled as practice. So you wouldn't be able to distinguish. If you missed the class, if you were sick and missed the class, or like the rest of my classmates and just skipped class randomly for funsies, you wouldn't know what to do for homework. Even though there's a portal which says homework, blatantly, you wouldn't know. But that's about 4 or 5 things to do right there. Oh, and then there was also a survey of, what did you learn this week in the class? You have to write that down and send it in. Usually I wrote nothing. No, I didn't actually write that, but I kind of wanted to. So the portal was broken. The portal was, because the portal had a bunch of stuff on there that wasn't necessary to hand in. And we could never distinguish, there was always so many things to do in a week, we could never distinguish what he wanted hand in. Because sometimes it was classwork that we were supposed to get to in class, but didn't, for reasons I'll explain in a minute. So sometimes he wanted us to hand in the classwork, because it became homework. But what the way that this is garbage is the fact that the portal is hard to use sometimes. I understand that. It's got its weird things about it. However, you are the computer professor. You are teaching a class in computing. I don't care if it's your first, you are qualified enough to teach this computer class. You are qualified enough to edit this portal and edit the assignments, because there would be weeks when he was like, oh, ignore X, Y, and Z on the portal and do, these other 3 assignments I'm just telling you right now. They're not going to be on the portal. I'm not going to put them up there. I'm just going to tell them to you. What is the point of having a portal for homework assignments, lists of stuff that's due in the week, if half the stuff isn't going to be on it, or half the stuff that is on it is going to be ignored some weeks and not other weeks? It doesn't make sense. If you're the computer professor, you need to fix this. It's been the last time that was updated was 2006. So we've been doing the same homework, and again, a lot of it wasn't relevant. A lot of it he told us not to do, or he told us to do extra. So right off the bat, you can understand there's a lot of frustration in this class, because there is a lot of assignments. There's always about 4 or 5 assignments each week, and there would always be about 6 or 7 on the portal. There would always be about maybe 1 every other week or every 2 weeks that he would briefly mention in class, but it would be on the portal, and you just kind of assume that the homework would be on the homework portal. Go figure. Professors either use it or they don't. There's never been a case, except for this guy, where they use it, but they use it completely wrong. Like, sometimes they use it. That's not effective. Either the homework is always going to be there and always going to be correct information, or it's just not there and, we have to adjust to that. There's no sometimes this and that. It doesn't make sense. If you miss a week of class and you go online and there's a thing that's explicitly labeled homework for week 6, you do that homework and you expect it to be the right thing. Just saying. So I've painted a little bit of a picture of what this professor gave a lot of work and wasn't necessarily the best at organizing it. Well, this man was a very old man. Not a very old man, I guess. Probably about 70. I would estimate him being 70. The class was 2.5 hours every Friday afternoon. It was my last class of the week, and I left for my first semester, and after that class I would always take the train home here to my parents' house, because as I mentioned, didn't have the best time at college on the weekdays, couldn't imagine that stuff would be much better on the weekends. So I would always take it would always be the last thing in my way. So already it wasn't, not a very fun experience. Well, this guy would spend about at least a half hour, at least the first half hour of this 2.5 hour class, talking about politics. He would talk about, and he wouldn't, it's not like he's preaching that, he's like, oh, the Republic, you guys should vote Republican. No, he would be like, oh, my opinions are this. I forget if he was Republican or Democrat. I tried to zone him out, but he'd be like, oh, I think the deficit is this and this, but I have liberal friends and I respect and understand them, and this isn't a politics class. This is a computing class. This couldn't be further from a politics class. But he would filibuster the class, and it wouldn't just be that. He would talk about how, oh, he knew some higher ups at Microsoft in the '60s, and he's known a lot about the internet. He's predicted the internet and this and that, and I used to be relevant, darn it, and then he talked about his grandkids for a half hour, and the guy would speak incredibly slowly, and he would keep trying to teach us lessons. He would keep trying to be like, if there's one thing, you gotta do the assignments. If there's one thing I can tell you in college, it's all about the assignment. You're not our mentor. I know you want to think that you're Mr. Miyagi over here, but you ain't, alright? You're just some guy who's not teaching the stuff that we expect you to teach. He would ramble for a half hour, and then when he would get to teaching, he would also ramble in between teaching. And he didn't do that good a job of teaching, either. He would often make a lot of mistakes. But, what can you do? The school can't fire him. He has tenure. What's the school going to do? Hire hire new people just for this lame, this low-level freshman class. No one wants to do that. I mean, honestly, I don't think older professors should be teaching computers anyway, to be completely honest. I'm not saying no one over the age of, 60 or whatever can learn computers. It's just not many can. Not many can. So, yeah. So let's see. So he would ramble so often. And anytime you would ask him, like, Professor, is this going to be on the homework? Professor, what is the homework? Professor, can you repeat this or that? He would always look at you and always be like, he would always just not give you a straight answer. He'd be like, there's a value in listening to things and I will get to the homework. I will tell you, but for right now, we gotta value this and that. So off topic, so distracted of a professor, and I looked at the assignment page at the end of the year. There was upwards of like 80 or so assignments. I'm gonna tell you, this was the only class that I ever got to see in at my time at University X. The only one. And I mean, I was happy with that in one respect, in that I guess technically he could have failed me. If he had counted all of the assignments, he could have failed me because I missed at least a third of them because of just misunderstandings, not knowing what he wants, and here's the kicker: when you go to talk to him, oh, this guy, of course. Oh, hey, here's the funny thing: no office hours, of course. No. There's something you want to look for in college. You want to go to a college where the professors have office hours, mandatory office hours that you can go and meet with them. But most professors here just went home, right? So what you would usually do if you had a problem is email them. Makes sense. It's not, you're not going to text them. That's very informal. The formal thing to pose a question to a professor on their own time is to email them, so that they're, when they check their email, they'll know, but they're not going to be bothered. You're not bothering them. This guy, he wanted us to call him on his cell number. Really? The computer guy doesn't have an email address? Okay. Computer, he doesn't have office hours. The way I'm supposed to contact this old guy who rambles, and I can barely understand what he's talking about when I'm in the room as him. I'm supposed to call this guy up, on his own time when I know he's at home, and have this conversation, and ask him about, what, I don't understand this assignment. I don't understand what assignments I'm missing. I don't understand this or that. I'm supposed to call this guy up? No, that is bad. So what I ended up having to do, the only other way that you could speak to him, I say this like he's like this mafia boss. No, but the only other option for me, because I didn't think that was a good idea. I find that to be really awkward. A, and B, I knew I wasn't going to get the information I needed. He wasn't going to be that helpful. So what I decided to do, what a lot of kids did, see him after class. Just kind of, because he's there. He doesn't mind staying a little bit after class. But again, I have a train to catch, just throwing that out there. So I go to him one day, late in the semester. And I'm like, Professor, I don't quite understand what I'm missing. I don't know what assignments are due, when, to be honest. And he's like, well, he goes into this diatribe about, you remind me of my grandson. Or he sees I'm wearing like an Adventure Time shirt or something, and he's like, my grandson likes that show. You remind me of him, and and so he's like, okay. Eventually he's like, okay, do you have a website? And I'm like, a website? Do I have a website? I mean, he's not talking about this. He's not talking about this. He's talking about confusing things, because apparently there's a website through the school that you can like store data and stuff, because when you submit HTML documents, which are how web pages are, when you submit them, you have to submit them, like you can't send them, you have to send them a certain way. It's weird. So you have to use like a file uploader, I think like FTP or whatever. Or whatever that one was, I don't know, FTZ, whatever. You have to use a certain, so you had to have that website. But I thought he was talking about the website assignment, or one of the 3 website assignments, because you had to have your personal website, you had to do a group project where you make a website, and then there's the website, that's the portal. So I wasn't sure which one he was talking about. I'm like, I don't know, maybe, I guess. you know? And so he's like, oh, well, you know, if you don't have one, you're sunk, kid. And so I'm like, well, can you check? And he checks, and he's like, oh, okay, you have these 2 assignments up. And I'm like, I've been handing stuff in. I don't know if you're getting it, guy. I don't know what's going on. Because that's the other thing. You have to hand in stuff. You have to upload it to the website on the portal. Sometimes you have to upload it to, you know, this other way. Like, so much confusing things in that class. So many confusing things. And, you know, and the guy's like, oh, well, you know, you have this and this, so just, you know, get me these 3 assignments. And I'm like, but, you know, the grades say I'm missing about, you know, 15 assignments. He's like, well, you know, get these assignments. So I'm like, all right, you know what, thank you very much. You've been at least somewhat helpful. I didn't say that to him, but I was like, thank you very much, Professor. I'm always respectful. I'm incredibly respectful of my professors, even the ones I hate. I am. I'm telling this to you guys to be funny and to give you insight as to what I'm truly thinking, but I am always respectful of professors. I hold that in very high regard, whether I actually respect them or not. You know, I believe 9 out of 10 times they at least deserve respect, and then even when they don't deserve respect, it at least is in my best interest to give them respect. So, you know, I'm like, okay, thank you very much. I turn to leave. Now this is like 20 minutes late. You know, we've been talking here for like 20 minutes for what should have been a really quick question, but whatever. You gotta play the game with professors. You gotta give him the conversation that he desperately needs, because this is why a lot of professors and teachers still teach, because they want to talk to people. They don't have friends. They don't have any other way to stay relevant in the world. They have to, and this is not all professors. I'm just saying, there's some of them like this. You know, this is their way of holding power over someone else. You know, captive audience and whatnot. So I turn to leave. As I'm walking, he starts talking to me again. Okay. I turn around and he's like, you know, what's your major, son? And I'm like, film. I'm in film. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I have an idea for a documentary. If you did a documentary on the food system and this and that, or the politics of it, and he goes on to pitch me like 3 different ideas that are just kind of like, oh wow, a documentary on how horrible how horrible cafeteria food is. That's original. Like I'm just thinking, like, well, you know, I'm not this big shot producer. Stop pitching me as idea. You know, I have my own ideas. You know, at this school, I wouldn't even be able to make a document. Like, just guy, come on, like, come on. Right. So, okay, I humor him, and I'm incredibly awkward because I'm fairly awkward when it comes to conversation. I don't. You know, if it's with someone who I'm not particularly comfortable with, or who I don't really know well, or if someone's just making me awkward. It kind of made me feel a little bit awkward in general. So I was just like, oh, yes, idea, Professor. You know, I'm kind of like, I'm trying to show him that, like, I'm a little bit nervous. I kind of want to go. Right, so I turn around, head for the door again. He stops me again. He's still sitting at his desk, by the way, like all the way over there. And this is after, for the second time, I've already said, thank you very much for your time, Professor. You know, I've said things that in any ordinary social context would indicate, I am done talking to you now. Conversation, end. Me, leave. He starts talking to me again, more about film and that, and it's just, it's stuff I don't even care, man. It's not like he's teaching me about the history of it. He's just going on and on. And eventually, and I'm like in the doorway. I am in the door, like, eventually, I'm like, Professor, I have a train to catch. Which is not a lie, I actually had a train to catch. I was like, I have to go. And he's like, oh, yes, I understand. And like, as I'm leaving, he's like, you know, have a nice day, and this and that. And I'm just like, I'm out the door, and I'm like... So, the professor did a bad job teaching. You know, was confusing as all get up about the assignments. Made me feel awkward, and wasted our time. Pretty much the opposite of what a professor should do, to be completely honest. And again, I had a few friends who had different professors. They didn't have to do the security awareness thing at all. They didn't have to do Alice at all. You know, they just focused on Excel, and their professor actually, you know, taught them stuff, and just, oh, such a headache. That class was such a headache. But yes, that is an intro to the classes at University X. And I'm gonna be fair here. I had about half my classes were fine. I learned stuff. I had professors that were interesting. You know, taught me stuff that were good professors. I will give them that. About half the professors But the other half, well, tune in next week for my adventures in my English class. And again, I will be fair. It's not necessarily University X's fault so much as it is the way tenure works, and just the way education works in general. So with that, AJ, out.